Well, namaste to each and every one of you guys. What amazing, overwhelming stuff, huh? Uh, well, it's just the beginning. Just so that you know, there is so much, so many different layers going on that it's not even funny. Uh, I had a conversation about the paradoxes and that how difficult sometimes this is for people because on one side we're very literary fixed when we want to be, and then we're very whatever you want to call it, fluid or whatever. That is to say, our wisdom, understanding, discernment, ability to reason may run away quite freely as water does, uh, and so many of the pieces that exist for us are there and they're obvious, but the problem is that without everything in proper order, what is being said will not be related to you, and so by virtue you end up then with a false picture yet again of reality. And it goes on. I watch it go on all the time. uh, the truth of the matter is that this is a very sacred and a very special thing. The I'm watching as I continue my studies in the Sumerian work, which is infinitely deeper, and I'm personally starting to believe infinitely higher than the rest of all of everything. To be quite honest with you, uh, there was ancient knowledge, and all the knowledge that we possess that's called ancient came from it. Well, you understand, just as the game at the wedding where the person tells one person and another person and another person, we're not just talking about minutes, we're now talking about thousands of years. And so it makes it quite difficult since we don't have any originals of anything outside of the Sumerian. Uh, it doesn't matter whether it was the Babylonian belief system, it was a corrupted but still tied to cuneiform uh, Sumerian thought process that they started injecting their Babylonian worldview. In the same way with the Akkadians, in the same way with the Egyptians, and so it is quite amazing that everything would stem out of that for the short amount of time that they existed, and then once again, even as the Anunnakis, they disappeared off the face of the earth after having shown everyone that lives in 2026 that they were more intelligent than we are or ever will accomplish. Uh, it's actually all of the ramifications of all of this is pretty massive, actually. Uh, what's really humorous is they've been finding a lot of really ancient Sumerian cuneiform that they call the priestly language. What science is starting to figure out is that actually a lot of that priestly language, so we've only known about Sumer, that was the end of the world because that's where the flood came. They are now finding documents that are pre-flood. There was a complete different species of humans that existed, that the Sumerians are getting the knowledge that they're getting from these people that existed before the flood. Uh, so it's going to be a long journey, but I don't think it's going to be a long time. Uh, there's just too much that's telling me inside that uh, there's some pretty massive stuff coming. We are unaware of the cycles that the universe goes through constantly because they're so far-fetched, they're so time, if any of you might have problems with being able to deal with the fact that you're engineered, don't be surprised, because you didn't have a problem with somebody telling you a non-existent God created you from mud and made you in a human and you never put together. What the hell do you think he just did? He genetically engineered you. The lack of reasoning that exists is absolutely mind-boggling. So, the where we left off in the teachings of Silvanus, we leave off in do not trust anyone as a friend. And while very well stated that all of these things are common sense, 9 out of 10 times truth is common sense. That would be reason. Reason would be the ability to have common sense. And unfortunately, it actually should be called uncommon sense, because it's not very common in the society we live in anymore. So, anyways, we're going to pick up there. That's where I left off last week, and there's some really good stuff in here. I hope maybe that you will be far enough out of Christianity that you can kind of discern in your mind that when you hear the word Christ, we're not talking about the 7-pound baby boy called Jesus, and we're not talking about the guy who died on the cross, which was nothing but a picture to show humans that you don't die after your body's dead. And if you're still functioning and struggling over there in the realm of the Christian Jesus, well, then you are certainly going to always struggle, because those things don't exist in the same realm. And so, do not trust anyone as a friend. Have a good number of friends, but not many counselors. Okay? So is this speaking? Is this pushing? No, it's not. Actually, you could almost put in that title, be very cautious. Even of people that you've known a long time doesn't necessarily mean that friendship exists there. Friendship is a very precious thing. And because people spend their life on Facebook and think that because they clicked a button they are friends with someone they have no knowledge of, that is just another piece of the corrupted mind of modern man. And so this is not corrupted mind of modern man. This is a time when people actually thought. And so they have a good number of friends, but not many counselors. First, examine your counselor and don't honor anyone who flatters. Oftentimes it is used very drastically. We as a species are quite amazing. We as humans are not always. And so their speech is as sweet as honey, but their hearts are full of poison. Marianne knows all about this. She's been encountering this her whole life. She says the things nobody else will say, which I also am one of those beings that says the things nobody else will say, and it is very offensive to the mass majority of weak-minded people. They don't like to hear that. They don't want to be told that there's a right and a wrong and a solid and a fix, you know, and there's lots of things that I've talked about that actually play that whole thing out in the modern society. And so their speech is as sweet as honey, but their hearts are full of poison. For whenever they think that they have become a reliable friend, then they will deceitfully turn against you and throw you down in the mud. And you probably have them around you. They wouldn't do a thing to lift a finger to help you, but they'll take everything that you give. So for whenever they think you have become a reliable friend, then they will deceitfully turn against you and throw you down in the mud. Do not trust anyone as a friend, for the whole world has become deceitful, and every person is troubled in vain. Vanity being emptiness is the proper definition of that. So these people are troubled for no reason. In other words, they are internally troubled. And this is one of the biggest sicknesses that's going on in our earth. I get vibes from people, and it's amazing how it works. But it actually, I'm starting to recognize, is the troubling that's going inside of a human. And I can say one word and watch it turn on like that. It goes on and they're absolutely mindlessly oblivious to the reality of what they're projecting. It's coming out of them. And so, do not trust anyone as a friend, for the whole world has become deceitful, and every person is troubled in vain. All things of the world are without profit. They happen in emptiness. Everything that man is seeking for is vanity. We have another very wise person that existed and that wrote, and he says that everything is vanity. So it's really funny that Solomon, yet again another 1,000 years before this, is teaching the exact same thing. I've heard people in Christianity go, well, I just can't believe we shouldn't even read that Solomon. Everything's not in vain. Don't you know the Lord is good and everything and everything and everything. You're a little bit corrupt in your mind. You don't understand what really is going on. And that's why you have that worldview. And so everything is in vain that is of the world. So the qualifier then is of the world. You're going to find he answers some questions I've been trying to answer, and I don't know how well it's getting through. But there are much more direction and instruction and purpose for people who are walking and desirous to walk in the purity of the light that's being given. It's emanating like great rays of the sun all over the place, quite honestly. And so he said, there is no real friend, not even a brother, since each person seeks his own advantage. My child, do not have anyone as a friend. If you acquire one, do not entrust yourself to them. And so it's not speaking against it, because at both the front and the end, he talks about having one. The wisdom is how you do that. It does tie back to what I've been saying. I used to think that people would hear truth and would recognize it and change on their own without having to be told. And I'm watching several different test cases, and so far it's not even registering, much less manifesting. And so it really does add to the worldview that I've had, which is people are what they are. If they're a thief, they're a thief. That's not unkind to what the scriptures have been telling us. I've been sharing with you guys for the last year, that whatever is inside of you is what you are. And if you are that, you'll always be that. That maybe don't make people feel good. The way out of that is to change that. But if you don't have a heart to do that, then there's nothing that's going to affect you anyways. And so it really does, exactly as everything that I've shared with you guys goes, it boils down to who you end up choosing that you want to be. Because you are making the choice, and it is what you want to be, and it also determines what you're going to suffer or what you're going to be rewarded by. Because just because we may not have a heaven and hell as we thought does not mean there is not punishment for your behavior. That would be the worst misconception that many people have gravitated to, because that way then they're okay. So they can live happily because I'm not going to get in trouble for any of the bad things I did. And that's not the truth. So, entrust yourself to God alone. Entrust yourself to God alone, both as a father and as a friend. And I know that really wasn't taught, but I'm really watching that in a lot of the stuff, even though they were gods and they made rules, and when they set a rule, it was firm. There wasn't any changing it. There's another piece that's coming out too about the reality of fate being set. And I looked back at my life and went through several hours of looking and scenario pondering, and I can see that everything that's happened to me was intended to happen. And that might get into a longer dialogue about fate versus free will, but free will lead you to the fate. It will be a choice you made if you arrive there. And so it really does have everything to do with you. There's just a place, and this is where you're supposed to be. Whether you get there or not is up to you. And so entrust yourself to God alone, both as a father and a friend. And that's really crazy. You know, on Wednesday night in the Atrahasis, we find Enlil after having destroyed the people. Now, I have gotten to read some writings that were written by Enlil that were actually, one of them was actually a letter of, I don't know if you want to call it repentance, but I would call it a letter of sorrow that Enlil pursued because he saw humans as nothing but slaves and workers. And after the destruction was done, he actually comes to the end, and there's actually a tablet written with him speaking to the scribe, where he says that Enki was right for having saved humanity. And so that none of those kind of concepts that will eventually come out, and they will come out. This is a long ways from being over. In fact, this is the beginning of everything else falling away. And it's so funny how many people place no value in the things that are most important, because they are going to be proven to be the most important. They're just too much. And so, if you wish to lead your life in tranquility, do not keep company with anyone. I used to say this in my life, that we didn't have a lot of friends in our life when my children were growing up, and it's the only reason that we made it as long as we did. It's because of the lack of people. We didn't let people in our sphere. When you let people in your sphere, people come in your sphere and they want to orchestrate your fear out of their belief system. And if you have any kind of an opinion or a strong fortitude about you, then that immediately begins a fight of sovereign against sovereign. And it's strange how many people don't recognize that. They walk in. I shared some texts with y'all back a few months ago where it actually says, do not live in another man's house, because you are under him as long as you're doing that. And so there's a lot of things, folks, that have been put out there for thousands of years for us to glean from, and we just absolutely are not interested in what the truth has to say about anything. And so he says, even if you do keep company with them, be as if you do not. Be pleasing to God, and you will not need anyone. And so, once again, everything has to be resolved around, and we're going to see this thought process extended here over the next little bit. Oftentimes when I'll say mindless people, the concept is that they are not conscious of their self in the real world, so they walk around blindly doing things as if they have knowledge, but they're totally blank of what knowledge even is. And that's manifesting a lot in our society. It's been going on, and it's getting worse, at least is my observation. And so the focus always is the one thing, and I shared this with you, that I was given a directive that it was all about alignment. It's all about getting in line, and there's not really any other message to preach. The remembrance that we are supposed to remember is that we are divine, and the understanding that we get to that divinity comes from the texts, many of them, such as the Atrahasis and these other things. All of this nonsense that's being sold out there is true understanding is still void of the truth. The remembering of our divinity comes from our Creator. Up until now, we've had multiple creators that were not real. And so your divinity is based on a God that never existed. It's not going to work. The picture that is painted by right and wrong and up and down and good and bad is always going to remain the same. It doesn't matter whether the Babylonians corrupted it. It doesn't matter whether the Egyptians or the Akkadians or the Jews or the Christians corrupted it. That's irrelevant, because it lives in you. And it's only those people who will tune into that who will ever benefit from what it's all about in the first place. That's why so many people are chasing so many things, and none of them are looking inside to find out, what does God want from me? What is it that he's been trying to get humanity to awaken to, other than the fact that they're divine, which is the first step to that, but it's not the end. And so Christ is the true light. Live with Christ, and he will save you. For he is the true light and the Son of life. Just as the visible sun shines on physical eyes, so Christ illuminates every mind and heart. And this is kind of the places as we go forward here a little bit where many will have to continually check their mind, because they're going to keep overriding, because their program says Christ is Jesus, and they're going to continue to overwrite Jesus, 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 Jesus over every bit of this, and none of this has anything to do with a human being. This isn't talking about the human being Yeshua or Jesus. That's not the Christ. Never has been. So, for he is the true light and the Son of life, just as the visible sun shines on physical lives, so we get a physical, then we're going to get a spiritual, so Christ illuminates every mind and heart. Where does that come from? That comes from inside. For if one who is wicked during his lifetime has an evil death, how much more so does one who has a blind mind? So whatever you are, Yeshua told us back 6 months ago when we were reading the Nag Hammadi text that if you do not get this rectified inside of you correctly, now not just rectified, it has to be rectified correctly. If you put all of your belief in a lie, you still are believing in a lie. That's the most difficult part of the whole thing, because your mind loves to fill your head full of lies because you're corrupted by lies. That's what all your programming is lies. And that's all of us. That's not just any one person or you're somehow inferior so all you can believe is lies. All of the programming that has been given to us for the most part through everything, but even in the internal stasis of who we are, is a lie. It's not the truth. And so, the journey is to seek truth. That's why when you find truth, you're supposed to value it for what it is, and you're supposed to revere it and view truth as sacred. And so, for if one is wicked during his lifetime and has an evil death, how much more so does one who has a blind mind? And why would he talk about evil actions and then go to a blind mind? Because he's expressing, of course, the evil actions come out of a blind mind. Okay, everything you do, think, and are comes out of you. Nobody created it for you. You did it for yourself. Whether that be good or whether that be bad, whether that be honest or whether that be a lie, whether that be a kind or whether that's unkind is irrelevant. It's all coming out of the inside of you. I say this all the time. They're teaching so many people and telling them about this whole thing about creating, and they're doing it under a guise as this is something new that you can all of a sudden do that we didn't know about. And I'm really sad to tell you, friends, you've been doing all of these spiritual things, you've been doing them your whole life. Every one of them. You have been creating the life that you have and the life that you have lived, you created that life. Were you maybe void of the truth because of the lies that you're the one doing it? And so you just chose to be like everybody else and blame everybody else for your problems instead of recognizing the problem with you is you. And people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that I'm the reason that things are like they are. They want to find someone else. We love scapegoats. They've been using scapegoats as long as there's been humans. And so if you die, if you had a wicked lifetime and you die, he says it's no different than if you were blind and you died. When you die, you're still blind. And so there's some really powerful connotations there. So there's a reason why people don't enlighten, and there's a reason why if you don't get it taken care of now, you won't ever get it taken care of. Now, I don't know, because we are kind of, if I could lay some things out, we are on the end of a loop that actually science is doing more to prove the things that I'm saying to you guys that even the spirit realm has told me is the truth. Science is doing more to prove those things to be true than they ever could have done to prove them untrue. Science is proving. Genetic engineering is proving. They have now found where DNA was spliced. They can't explain it. The greatest geneticists in the world cannot tell you that should not exist in the human genome. Somewhere in the human genome, someone with the knowledge before us had the ability to cut a piece of DNA out and put the ends back together. That is a known American modern scientific fact. It's not biblical and it's not mythological. It's truth. And so, because of the depth of all of these things, everything about this concept of mind really is going to determine a whole lot of things, folks. But where we are in time frame, we are at the end of another very specific, very calculated, very researched, very proven cycle. And that's what all of this that's going on is. It is being blown up, but I felt like I got a message about all of the falseness. All of the falseness is part of it, because all of those, for specific people, that means someone whose heart is pure, will actually be a precursor and a step towards the truth. And so I've said this in the past, that I did not realize the whole thing. I was hung up with everybody in the whole thing of Christianity, and I look back and realize now that that was a fate that was predestined for me, and I walked into it. Now, I had a million different ways I could have acted that would have changed everything about it. But the reality is inevitably, good, bad, or indifferent, I was going to end up there. I ended up here for the same position. I'll end up at the next place for the same position. They are fates that are established. How you get there and what you do, good, bad, or indifferent, is totally your taking. That's where you get to create. But you will, in time, end up where it has been determined that you will end up. The only question is how do you arrive there? Do you arrive there and you've destroyed yourself? Or do you arrive there and you have learned truth and you have grown? And so many, unfortunately, the latter is really not the essence of their journey. And so, for every blind person remains incapable of seeing it. So it is. That's funny, because Cryon says that all the time, and so it is. So it is with people who do not have a sound mind. So it's not just having a mind. It's not just the fact that you sat around and thought about something. It's not those things at all. Everyone is doing that. Everyone had a thought before they do a bad action. Everyone. So at some point in their mind, whether it was milliseconds or days or months or years, had a thought before they made an action. And what does that do? That then puts the responsibility for the action on me. For everything visible, I'm sorrowful, for every blind person remains incapable of seeing it, so it is with people who do not have a sound mind. They do not delight in acquiring the light of Christ, which is reason. Now, I've shared with you that intelligence and then source has been kind and brought those words so that you know that everything that I said was absolutely true, that we were created with intelligence endued inside of us. In our makeup, we have intelligence. That's been validated. Here we are again with reason. And the reason why people don't reason is because they're not reasonable. And so it makes it really bad, because you can be fully justified in your own mind, and what's going to happen to you is not going to be pretty at all. Folks, there's a lot of people, if everything is what it is, we're going to watch the next major deluge happen. The only difference is it's not going to be a flood this time. And it may include some fire in it, which you would find if you went back and read the book of Revelation, that at the ending of the earth, there is a fire system. I'm not quite sure that doesn't tie with several of the things that are actually ramping themselves up in this time in which we live in. And just so you know, this is the fifth one, and it's on exactly time frame as all the other fours, including the flood and including the earthquake, including the burning of the earth. All of these happened over 10,000 years or more. These events have happened, and we're at that time again. Even scientists are saying these numberings are right. They couldn't have known this. They didn't have telescopes. The only way you could have known about that planet is you got in a ship or you came from somewhere where you could view it. Science is starting to tell you that what you've been told is not the truth and that the truth lives over here. People don't want to hear it because it's quite difficult. And so, they do not delight in acquiring the light of Christ. In this light that's supposed to live inside of you is reason. Really simple. Kind of almost anticlimactic, if you would. Not really, if the thing that the world is looking for and they go through Christianity and everything else is reason, and none of them are finding it. The people that aren't Christians aren't finding it, and the ones, or at least very minimally. And the ones that are Christians can't find it. That's why? Because they're looking for the wrong thing. They're not looking to be a very stable person that looks at people and you see their BS and you don't buy it. Even if you don't tell them that you see it, you still see it. For everything visible is a copy of what is invisible. What you are inside is how you're living your life now. As a fire burns in a place without being confined to it, so it is with the sun in the sky. All of its rays extend to places on earth. It is a single being that Christ has, and he gives light to every place. Reason. This is also the way he speaks about our mind. Using the image of a lamp burning, y'all remember that verse, right? That you're not supposed to put a basket over the city. You don't put a basket over the city to dim the light, and you don't dim and you don't diminish the light. Actually, if you get into the reality of the truth of what's being said here, the punishment is there is also a punishment associated with you dimming not only your light but other people's light as well. And so lighting up the whole place, existing only in a part of the soul. So it's not in all of you. The light that is within you isn't all of you. It's only a part of you. It's that other part that's not light of the soul, which is destroying your life. It still gives light to all of the parts of the body, even though it's not the whole. So we are not totally and exclusively light beings in the concept that many are forming a picture of, that somehow we are this emanating ray of goodness. In addition, I will say something more important. The mind, in terms of its actual being, is in a place, which means it is in the body. But in terms of the thought process, the mind is not in a place. For how can it be in a place when it contemplates every place? God is incorporeal and in no place. But we are able to say something still more important than that. So now he's talking about us, but now I have something else that's more important, and it's also that God is just like that. Do not think in yourself that God is in a place like heaven. If you localize the Lord of all in a place, then you could say that the place is more exalted than the one who dwells in it. For what contains is superior to what is contained. I'll show you a piece of that. You have divine light inside of you. You destroy it, you compress it, you diminish it, or you ignore it, because the house, the flesh, is superior to the spirit that is in you. It's only when you will allow the light to grow to the point that it becomes more. That's why what is inside must become what is outside, and what is outside must become what is in. Okay? It's exactly the teaching that Yahusha taught. The only reason that your flesh keeps ruling you is because you allow it to rule you. You do nothing to stop it. Whether it's your excuses about how you don't have the power, which is not the truth, it's a lie. You do have the power. You just choose not to. So if you localize the Lord of all in a place, then you could say that that place is more exalted than the one who dwells in it. For what contains is superior to what is contained. For there is no place that can be called incorporeal. It is not right for us to say that God is corporal. The consequence would be that we attribute both increase and decrease to the body, and also that one who is subject to these will not remain imperishable. Just so you know, that is the teaching. That's why you need healing. That's why you need saving. Knowledge of God comes through knowledge of Christ. Now, the creator of all creatures is not difficult to know, contrary to popular belief. But it is impossible to comprehend what he is like. For it is not only difficult for human beings to comprehend God, but it is also difficult for every divine nature, the angels and the archangels, for it is necessary to know God in the way he is. You cannot know God through any means except through Christ, which was the meaning and the purpose of the picture. He came to show humans that you are good and kind inside, but that doesn't make you live that way. So, you cannot know God through any means except through Christ, who bears the image of the Father. That was the whole teaching of, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Why? Because I am in total coherence and alignment with the will and the actions and the thoughts and the behaviors of what God wants from us. That's why I told you, many people, I used to listen to them catch a big sigh when they would ask, oh, well, are the 10 commandments done away? If you needed 10 commandments, then there's nothing that's going to help you. If you needed someone to tell you how to behave, you couldn't find that inside of you, then you haven't found it anyways. Because no matter what they tell you, you always fought with it. And that's exactly how people act. We were taught, raised, don't do this, don't do that. You didn't have to be religious. I know people that got whippings for stealing. I know children that were taken back to stores and they had to turn stuff back in by their parents who had a consciousness, and they were trying to instill that in their children, that this is not acceptable behavior. And so they made them suffer even as a small child. Then there's others who have done nothing but steal their whole life, and they have no consciousness of it. It just is who they are. If I want it, I take it. Doesn't matter whose it is. It's mine. And so, there's a difference. You cannot know God through any means except Christ, who bears the image of the Father. For this image reveals the true likeness of God in a visible way. So why did Yahusha come? He came to show us what we should be. And that is, if we do that, if we live like that, if we think like that, if we behave like that, then we are proving that we know God. It's really, to me, it's absolutely quite profound, but it's really amazing in how simplistic it is, and most people go, yeah, oh, okay, and continue right on with no behavior change whatsoever. And that's sad, but it is true. So, for this image reveals the true likeness of God in a visible way, in a way that our minds can see it. Did we see God in him? No. Did we see God in him? Yes. That's the paradox. A king is usually not known apart from an image, which is why you find all of the images of all of the kings. And to wipe a king out, they went in and they beat the rock until they broke all of his picture off of the rock of the relief, and he no longer exists. Why? Because history will no longer pick him up. Why? Because he's no longer in the writing. And so that's why they can also make you believe there was a Jesus, because they took the writing and they changed it to tell you he was something else. And of course, people aren't very conscious anymore. And this is not now. This is thousands of years, folks. So this isn't like a thing on us, although I would believe that we are maybe getting further contrary to popular belief. And so consider these things about God. He is in every place, and on the other hand, he is in no place. So I know I've been saying this, but you're going to find out that it's becoming reality. You really must learn how to mature, and you must learn that everything is a paradox. Everything. Everything is a yes, and everything is a no. And so he's in every place, and yet he's in no place. In terms of power, he is in every place, but in terms of divinity, he is in no place. So then, it is possible to know God a little. In terms of his power, he fills every place, but in his exalted divinity, nothing contains him. Everything is in God, not God in everything. How many times have I heard, oh, well, God is everywhere. But God is not in anything. Anything is in him. The universe is in him. The earth is in him. He is not in the earth. That's totally backwards, and that's exactly what all of you have been programmed. Looking for God is as close as having a thought that touches your skin. So what is it to know God? Everything that partakes of the truth is God. A couple of things there with that. Partake means someone who actively does. So you could also state this: everyone who does the things that God does knows the truth. Everyone who doesn't know the truth, because if they knew the truth, then they would be doing. And so they are still blind, deaf, dumb, and ignorant, no matter how spiritual they think they are. So Christ is the light of the Father. But it is as impossible to look at Christ as it is to look at the Son. God sees everyone. No one looks at him. So when I say those words to people about you're free to do whatever you want to, just remember that there's a price to be paid. A lot of the concept that's being taught right now is that there is absolutely no price to be paid. I hate to tell you, but there's a lot of the doctrines that are being taught that are not true. And you can tie it to karma, or you can not tie it to karma. To be quite honest with you, I'm not exactly sure that all of that is exactly as it is in reality. That doesn't mean to say that it's not true, but it simply means that it is quite possible that nobody still knows. I've listened to really high scholars who could not tell you what karma really does or means. They give you pieces of the same story, but they don't have a pat answer that they can tell you this is what's going to happen. So, but it is as impossible to look at Christ as it is to look at the Son. God sees everyone, and yet no one looks at him. Christ receives and gives ungrudgingly. So I can say it right there. That's an attribute of God, if you would. Okay? To give ungrudgingly. He is the light of the Father. Thus, he sheds light on every place. Christ is all, who has inherited everything from the one who is. For the all is Christ. The reason that you get that in the Bible is because they need to keep putting that example out there. The truth of the matter is when you go to the book of Revelation, I think it's maybe like chapter 11, chapter 13, you hear a statement that Yahusha apparently made to John, and he says, as I am, so are you to be also. So every place that you read this about who Christ was, the anticipation is only for those people who are the elect, which is used constantly. Only those people will understand that they are supposed to be duplicating Yahusha or Christ, and Christ is the duplication of God. So when you do the things that he did, you are in alignment with God. Outside of that, you're out of alignment and you are not part of the thing. It's really simple, but the ramifications are huge. And so, for when you consider sin, It is not anything real. I tried to share this with you before. Yes, there is a sin. There is still sin. My defining of the word of the concept of sin is the statement that I believe Paul made when he said, to those who know to do right and they don't do it, to them that is sin. He was explaining the metaphysical concept of sin. Once you have been told, shown, and gifted with the truth of a behavior, and you continue to do it, then you are in sin. The greatest form, and the only person who can commit that towards you is you. To those who know to do right and don't, to them it is sin. I used to say, and it would mess people up as many things do, because everything is a paradox, that if you have no knowledge, truly have no knowledge that something that you're doing is wrong, and the minute that it is exposed to you, you immediately change your direction, then that is the great split that is everywhere. Because many people have been told 1,000 times the things that they're in their life that they recognize that they're doing that are not right towards other people, towards a lot of situations, and yet they continue to do them. They are living in sin, and there will be a price to pay. We don't get away with it. That's a really sad factor. Are you going to go to hell? I can't say that. I don't believe that hell in the manner that we were taught it exists, but I do believe that there's punishment. And of course, they won't tell you that because the archons are guiding all of this near-death experience and what happens after when you walk through the tunnel to the light. And so, so it is with Christ. Even if he is in deficiency, I'm sorry, I think that's right. So it is with Christ. Even if he is in deficiency, yet he is without deficiency. Even if he was begotten, he is unbegotten. So it is with Christ. If, on the one hand, he is comprehensible, on the other hand, he is incomprehensible in terms of his actual being. Christ is the all. And so I said all of that to tie back to the thing in Revelation of Yeshua telling us that we were to be like him, which I could also say to you then, to those who are, those people are the all. It would not be sacrilege. He taught this constantly. Do you not know that you are gods? I promise you he wasn't out there just talking to anybody and everybody was a god. We have the ability to go to that. But we have a controlling feature here called your personal ego self that keeps that from happening in most cases. And so, he is incomprehensible in terms of his actual being. Christ is the all. Whoever does not possess the all cannot know him. And that's why it's so easy, because there's a lot of pieces where the pictures that are tied to, which he spoke of, I shared some of that with y'all, of Yeshua saying that y'all are going to worship a dead man and it's not right, and you know, you're going to call me God as if I'm the all. He's not the all, he's the all because he's a part of the all. We are the all because we are a part of the all. And so, my child, do not dare to speak a word about this one, and do not confine the God of all to mental images, which is exactly what we've done. For will the one who condemns not be judged by the one who condemns? It is good to ask, and it is good to know who God is. Reason and mind are masculine nouns. Let the person who wishes to know about this, one, ask quietly and reverently, for there is no small danger in speaking about these things, since you know that you will be judged on the basis of everything that you say. So when we're told that God is watching every single one of us, and then we live our lives blind and thinking that we get away, just the thoughts that most people have had over the course of their lifetime, even if they seem to be good people, would boggle your mind much more if you are any kind of a conscious person who can look inside yourself and think about all of those thoughts and behaviors that you've exhibited through the course of your life. Because inevitably when that comes is when the blindness is opened and the ignorance is revealed, then you no longer are ignorant. From that point forward, you continue to do that, makes you a sinner, makes you someone that is destroying yourself. It is self-destruction is what sin is. You are destroying yourself. You might be hurting other people, but you're destroying yourself. And so, reason and mind. It's so crazy. You wouldn't think about it in spiritual text because it was non-existent in Christianity. They didn't want you, Paul is the only one, you must renew your mind. And that's all they gave you. And I suspect Paul used to preach really long messages about reason and the mind and the self and all of those things. I have full belief that that's the truth. And so he is incomprehensible in terms of his actual being. Christ is the all. Whoever does not possess the all cannot know Christ. My child, do not dare to speak a word about this one, and do not confide the God of all to mental images. For will the one who condemns not be judged by the one who condemns? It is good to ask, and it is good to know who God is. Reason and mind are masculine nouns. Let the person who wishes to know about this, one, ask quietly and reverently, for there is no small danger in speaking about these things, since you know that you will be judged on the basis of everything you say. Understand by this that the one who is in darkness will not be able to see anything without receiving the light. And I am even more recognizing this. You can talk till you're blue in the face, and they look at you with a blank stare, and they're no closer to having understanding than if you'd have never said a word. Unfortunately. And so, without receiving the light, by which means he can see. So you can't even begin to see the truth until you can see the light that's in you. Until you receive that. Examine yourself to see whether you really have the light. I would have to ask, why aren't all of these people out there that are making millions of dollars off of YouTube, why aren't they telling anybody any of these things? Why is it more popular that I can teach you how to make all the money that you ever want for your lifetime, and you can have all of it that you want, but it's not important to tell people that they must look inside of themselves and see. And if you are not what he is, then it's absolutely up to you to change that. Because it's not going to make people happy, and they're not going to pay you a lot of money to tell them that they can have everything they want. It's a lie, but it sells good. So, if you remember right back to a friend, they will overcome you with flattery. Someone I know and love very much says that a friend isn't a person who is a yes man. A friend is a person who tells you the truth, no matter whether you like it or not. And I admit she's right. It is the truth. For many are seeking in darkness. Okay, let me back up. Examine yourself to see whether you really have the light. You don't have to go to a station. You don't have to go to a priest. You don't have to go sit in a confession booth. All you need to do is to honestly look inside yourself. I know, I've been saying this the whole time. I've been saying this for 30 years. All of these principles I've been teaching, never having read any of them. So that if you ask about these things, you may understand how you will escape. For many are seeking in darkness, and they grope about wishing to understand. since there is no light for them. My child, do not let your mind stare downward, but rather let it look with the light at things that are above. So if we focused on being all that we are, we wouldn't be focused on all that is. And by the defining there, I'm talking about what we truly are in consciousness versus what you perceive you are as a human with a name. And when you stare at that, that's why there's so much struggle and contention right now with all of the stuff that's going on with the internet, all of the stuff that's going on with AI, all of the stuff that people's brains are being massively programmed to be more and more mindless. They're not going to teach you. The only thing you're going to find is when you specifically go look for things other than what they want to feed you. Even if it is located on earth, for light always comes from above, even if the light is on the earth. Light always comes from above. Let it seek to pursue the things that are above. Illuminate your mind with heavenly light, so that you may turn towards the light of heaven. Walk in the way of Christ. Do not tire of knocking on the door of the Word. It's really funny that this would be here today. The other day I was going through a thought moment, and it was quite amazing that Yahusha said, and so there's an epiphany here for anyone who will accept it. Everyone is searching. The only question that is what are you searching for? And so no one can really answer that except an individual person. Some may be honest enough to see that and know that about themselves. They may even have the answer as to what it is that they perceive that they're searching for. But no one is not searching. The only question that there is what are you searching? Because here's really a bad truth. As good as Christians have made it seem that Yahusha taught that it is, so here's the key prerequisite. Yahusha says that it's only those who seek that find. But he doesn't define whether that defining has anything to do with seeking good or bad. He only makes a blanket statement that whatever you are seeking for, that's what you will find. People walk mindlessly through life, and these great, amazing words of wisdom are given to us, and they never give it 2 seconds thought to even ask, what does this even mean? What does it mean to those who seek that find? He didn't say if you're seeking for God. He said whatever you're seeking for is what you're going to find. What if what you're finding isn't what you think you're seeking for? You have an internal collision. That's in you. That's where that confusion and chaos comes from, is in you. That's why there's so many people in our society that are completely fractured inside. Do not tire of knocking on the door of the Word. So here we're given a direction. Well, what should we be knocking on? We should be knocking constantly on the door of the Word. And do not cease walking in the way of Christ. So now we have another piece. You want to know how you're supposed to walk every day? Walk like he did. And knock on the Word constantly. Walk in it that you may receive rest from your labors, because otherwise you're just beating your head against the wall thinking you're accomplishing something. And the truth of the matter is you can't make enough money on this life to give you what's going to be necessary when you die. If you walk in another way, the way you take is of no profit. Doesn't matter whether you're a Bill Gates or not. That is carnal. Well, all of the money that Donald Trump and that Bill Gates and that Elon Musk and all of that stuff that they possess means nothing. You say, well, it means a lot to me. Well, there's your answer. You're all about things. You're all about earth. Because that doesn't mean anything in the realm outside of this thing we call earth. Do not tire of knocking on the door of the word, and do not cease walking in the way of Christ. Don't get tired of the truth of the word, and don't ever quit walking in the manner in which you're supposed to walk. Walk in that you may receive rest from your labors. That's why some of you feel exhausted all the time. It's actually a real sickness in our society. That and many things are going on. Today is the beginning of the summer solstice. Of the solstice, the longest day. There's going to be some really amazing sun energy over the next few days. There's going to be a separation here, kind of, that occurs. There's going to be a lot of you that are going to really feel struggle, and it's going to be really struggle. The universe is going to change what the universe is going to change. That's fate. The question is how do you get there? And so for those that are aware and are attuned, those people's nervous systems will undergo for the next 3 days is really the main power. But we're also coming to the end of a 12-year cycle, which goes on every 12 years. This cycle begins, and we live our lives in cycles of 12s, whether you knew it or not, which is also sexadecimal. It's 2 6s. You can always use the number 6 to find out where we are in cosmology. This cosmology is over 5,000 years old. You live your life in 12-year cycles. Every 12 years you end a cycle. That's happening today. And in a few days from now, there will be the beginning of the cycle. How the next 12 years of your life is going to go is going to be determined by the state that you're in right this minute, even as we're sitting here. So if you're in a really bad state, I would predict that your next 12 years are not going to go real good. On the other side, if you've grown in the last 12 years from where you were 12 years ago, I certainly know I have massively. And so that's not for me to judge anybody else. That's for you to judge yourself. I know who I am, and I know where I'm at. And I don't even try to think about y'all anymore. In fact, it becomes less and less the more that I learn. It's not important. I can't help you. I'll be here. I'm doing what has told me that I'm supposed to do, which is to tell the truth and not worry about who doesn't like it. Don't worry about who leaves. Don't worry about who doesn't believe it. You keep telling the truth. That's your job. And I'm going to do that because I'm faithful. What you do is your business. So for those who walk in the broad way will in the end go down to muddy perdition. Now you notice there's no fire in this. The perdition that has been talked about, he talks about twice, actually has to do with going into mud. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange because that ties with David saying that God brought him out of the miry clay. And he did that. We were created out of the miry clay, but we also often return back to our roots and we get stuck in the mud. And so, and they will, for those who walk in the broad way, the allusion to straight is the gate and narrow is the way, and few there will be that find it. That still is correct. And so, they will end up and go down to muddy perdition, for the underworld is wide open to the soul, and the place of perdition is broad, except Christ, the narrow way, for he is oppressed and bears affliction for your sin. O obstinate soul, in what ignorance you exist. For who is your guide into the darkness? How many likenesses did Christ take on because of you? So all of this stuff that you hear about the pride, all of this stuff that is going through the female branch of humanity, that women are equal or better than men. I've heard family members say that nonsense, and it really is a proof of who you are. It really is a proof of where you are in the spirit realm. And as again, there's nothing that you can do about it except recognize it and do whatever you have to do to navigate. This is all about navigation of a journey. When you go on a journey, you navigate. We are on a journey, and we are supposed to learn how to function in the realm of God living in a place called earth. And so, O obstinate soul, in what ignorance you exist. For who is your guide into the darkness? And how many likenesses did Christ take on because of you? Although he was divine, he was found amongst humans as a human. And this used to pop up. The New Age Christianity says that that Jesus is all God. He's just acting like a human. He said himself that he was all human, living a human life, so he could know. It's really funny. It just hit me that statement that Yahusha made about that he had in all manners to be like humans are is exactly the message that is being taught in the spiritual world about us on a journey of consciousness. So what Yahusha really said in modern language is that I am on a journey experiencing my consciousness in this body. And he sealed the heart, although he was divine, he was found among humans as a human. He descended to the underworld. He released the children of death. They were suffering birth pangs, as the scripture of God has said, and he sealed the heart within it. He completely broke its strong bows, and when all the powers had seen him, they fled, so that he might bring you, poor wretch, up from the abyss and die for you as a ransom for your sin. I do disagree with that statement, but the rest of it absolutely is appropriate to the purpose. He saved you from the strong hand of the underworld. Who is the underworld? You are the underworld. But as for you, give him utterly and completely your assent by taking decisive action. See, ascension only happens through action. No action, no ascension. That's why people who are not changing, but they tell you how spiritual they are, it's all a big ball of BS. They're not. The ascension method, by virtue, is an indicator that change is present. They don't go separately. Behavioral change comes when there is internal change. That is the way all humans are made. If you are still like you have always been, then you are still like you have always been. I don't care how many colors you see or how many different species talk to you. So, but as for you, so this is to each individual one, give him utterly and completely your assent by taking decisive action, that he may take you up with joy. That assent is the gift of Christ, which is humility of the heart. So now we've been told about a few pieces here that you can take and apply in your everyday life. And one of them is reason. It's the light of God. When you have reason, you're capable of thinking, and not only thinking, but you're capable of thinking clearly, and not only thinking clearly, but you are able to think rightly. And if you don't have all three of those, then your thinking is the same as everyone else's. But people who have reason, they say, well, you know, that wouldn't really be the best thing, no matter if it's right or if it's wrong. I think this time I'll sidestep the thing and leave it alone, because inevitably there will come a time when the change will be necessary. It's funny, that was part of what was spoken to me today already, so it's cool. That assent is the gift of Christ, which is humility of heart. If your ego is ruling you, folks, I promise you, you're not humble. I don't care how many namastes you say. The acceptable sacrifice is a contrite heart. If you humble yourself, you will be greatly exalted. And I would have you see that even the Bible was telling people for all of this time, no one can do this for you. The New Age message and a lot of the new spiritual messages, folks, those are right. And so I want to say that I'm against the corruptness that has manifested itself. I'm not against spirituality. Of course, it's part of us. But what's being sold as spirituality is manipulation, and that's what I'm adamantly against. So, that assent is the gift of Christ, which is the humility of heart. So ask yourself, if the assent of Christ is humility of heart, do I have it? Because if you don't have it, then you just answered your own question. The acceptable sacrifice has always been a contrite heart. A broken spirit and a contrite heart is what I desire from you, is what the Bible says to us. A broken spirit and a contrite heart. We have been programmed that pride, arrogance, ego, those are all the good things, right? Go beat somebody down so that you can prove that you're better than they are. That's positive, boy. That gets you on the television. You make millions of dollars, and people will spend their money to come and watch you beat each other to death so that someone can prove that they were stronger than someone else. The total thing is a corruption. The acceptable sacrifice is a contrite heart and humility of the heart. If you humble yourself, no one's going to do it for you. God's not going to do it for you. Quit praying that God will humble you. All you're going to do is get real bad things go on in your life, and if you don't choose to learn from them, you're not going to learn humility no matter how many bad things he sends your way. You're creating those by saying those. If you humble yourself, you will be greatly exalted. And if you exalt yourself, you will be exceedingly humbled. One of the main places where it's been always pretty clear that there is a right and a wrong, and you can do whichever one you want, but understand there's a price to pay. So guard yourself against evil. We're supposed to do that. My child, guard yourself against evil, and do not let the spirit of evil throw you down into the abyss. For he is mad and bitter. He is terrifying, and he throws everyone he can into a pit of mud. It is a very good thing not to love fornication, and not even to think of that wretched subject at all. For to think of it is death. It is not a good thing for any person to fall into death. For a soul that is dead will be without reason. So then you could also tie to that statement that the people who have the ability to reason rightly are people who are alive. And the ones that aren't alive don't have the ability to reason correctly. So they do have a reason, but it's not to reason correctly. And they will be without reason. It is better not to live at all than to acquire an animal's life. Watch yourself so that you are not burned by the fires of fornication. Many shooters of the arrows are slaves to it. These whom you don't know are your enemies. O my child, strip off the old garment of fornication and put on the clean and shining garment. In it you are beautiful. Did you notice there's no qualifiers? If you are willing to do this, to purge and protect yourself, then in Source's eyes, we've already been given the outcome of those workings, those actions that I've just been sharing with you. What is the outworking of that? You become then beautiful. For a soul that is dead will be without reason. It is better not to live at all than to acquire an animal's life. Watch yourself so that you are not burned by the fires of fornication. Many shooters of the arrow are slaves to it. Those whom you don't know are your enemies. O my child, strip off the old garment of fornication, put on the clean and shining garment. In it you are beautiful. And I kind of get the picture there, as you begin to overcome your flesh, you will begin to see the light and the beauty inside of you. There actually is a place where you don't make it okay for you to have a failure, but you recognize the failure and you use that more as a positive learning lesson so that you don't continue to make that failure again. It is the path of growing. It is humans evolving when you come to that place. Release yourself from every bond that you may acquire freedom for yourself. If you cast away from yourself desire with its many devices, and you release yourself from sins of pleasure, listen, O soul, to my advice. Do not become a nest of fox and snakes, or a hole for lizards and asps, or a lair for lions, or a shelter for vipers. When these things happen to you, O soul, what will you do? For these are the powers of the adversary. Through them, everything dead will gain entrance to you. I don't even like the sound of that. For their food is everything dead and everything that's impure, which is why impure people feed on impure things. When these are within you, what living thing will come into you? The living angels will detest you. You were a temple, but you made yourself a tomb. Do you not know that the temple, that your flesh, the body, is a holy temple? But you made yourself a tomb. Not somebody else did, not society did, not your parents did. None of those have the power to make you be what you are. Only you have that power. So stop being a tomb and become a temple again. It's that simple. And if you've never been a temple during your lifetime, that still doesn't mean that you can't be. But it is a choice that you choose. That uprightness and divinity may remain in you. Light the light within you and don't put it out. For no one lights a lamp for wild animals or their young. Raise your dead who have died, for they were once living and they died on your account. It's really amazing how much we run in humans in our society, and it's quite amazing. Anything that has to do with source is always going to bring you back to a place of accountability. I think a lot of the judgment that people maybe talked about and used is actually accountability. It's not judgment. You've already been judged. You judged yourself. This is wrong, but I'm going to do it anyways. And if you are mindless and you never even had that conversation with yourself, then there's no hope for you anyway. You'll just continue until you die, and you'll come back in maybe 10,000 more times. Maybe you'll be at the next loop that happens 12,000 years from now. It's hard to say. We don't know. For no one lights a lamp for wild animals or their young. Raise your dead who have died, for they were once living, and they died on your account. Give them life, and they will live again. For the tree of life is Christ. The hope which exists in you. The expectance of you doing something that was great. That is the hope of glory. And so Christ is the wisdom of God. He is wisdom. He is wisdom, and he's also the Word. So it really, on one level, it wouldn't have mattered. My body could have been used and it would have been exactly the same, because the message was what is important. Not the way whether he walked around over there. When he went to Tibet, I promise you he didn't completely act like he did when he was in Jerusalem. When he went to Syria and taught for multiple years, which nobody even seems to even know, although they have written documentation of his teachings in Syria. But nobody knows about that. Why? Because they don't want you to know that he was teaching people ancient mysticism of higher self. And I can quite tell you he had no problems knowing that the Anunnakis were real and that they existed. Entrust yourself to this one who became all for your sake. Knock on your inner self as upon a door, and walk within yourself as on a straight road. It really is simple that it comes down to the point that that's really all that's necessary. But what that means, and it seems like the people's mental abilities to be able to reason that. The reason thing was a gift given to me because it's something that I'm going to watch that goes on. That's how he always does with me. He tells me things and then they begin to manifest. But you begin to see, wow, that is the truth. That behavior that person just exhibited is proof either that they have reason or they don't. Unfortunately, you can't unsee what you see. So, it is up to us to knock on our inner self as upon a door, and to walk within yourself as on a straight road. What does that mean? It is up to you to knock on yourself as if a door, and to walk in yourself as on a straight road. Well, one of the things it tells you is that what your inner is what your outer will be. It's not important the outer. It's important the inner, because the outer will follow the inner. If you are behaving in a corrupt manner, in an unrighteous manner, in an unhonorable manner, that's what you are inside. I don't care what you say. On the other side, you cannot have two pennies or have all the money in the world, and you can exhibit humility and all of those traits, and the reason that you do that is because that's what you are inside. And I'm not talking about fake humility where you manipulate people by trying to act like you're something that you're not. That's a totally different beast, but it is a beast. So, knock on your inner self as upon a door. Who has to do that? You do. Where do you have to do it? Inside yourself. And walk within yourself as on a straight road. Where do you have to do that? Who has to do it? You do. Where do you do it? Inside yourself. For if you walk on the road, you won't be able to go astray. And if you knock on the one, you knock on hidden treasure. Because we're more capable than we ever will imagine. It's going to be quite shocking to you guys as things begin to unfold in this whole two worlds, which is really funny because the Sumerians actually wrote about that thousands of years before there was a Dolores canon, and it is absolutely the truth, and now science is even verifying that that is in fact truth. The other world that exists is not a low-density world. And you knock on hidden treasures. Since he is wisdom, he makes the foolish person wise. She is a holy kingdom and a shining robe, wisdom. Having much gold, she gives you great honor, which is all in the wisdom writings of Solomon. He says every one of these words. The wisdom of God became for your sake a foolish form that she might pick you up, O foolish one, and make you wise. So there is a benevolent power, force, spirit that is constantly working for humanity. It's kind of like God is everywhere. No, we got that backwards. Everything is in God, not God is in everything. There's a difference in that. And if you don't see that picture, you'll continue to think in the manner in which you've been thinking. But when you look at everything and you start seeing God, your perception of the world begins to change immediately. Give yourself gladness for the true vine of Christ. Satisfy yourself with the true wine, in which there is neither drunkenness nor dregs. The true wine entails the end of drinking, since it can give great joy to the soul and mind through the Spirit of God. But first, before you drink it, nurture your reasoning powers. So then a beautiful piece to that is reason is a big signal and it's a big indicator, but it also it ties back to you having to exercise that reasoning. You will have many reasonings that are wrong. It is only in you being conscious, aware in the moment, and paying attention that you recognize that your reasoning was wrong, so that you can learn how to properly reason. You don't just all of a sudden, that's why I said be very careful about this whole concept of reasoning, because there's a world full of 8 billion people out there that are reasoning. It doesn't mean that they are conscious reasoning. It simply means they have a reasoning. That piece of that was given to us. We're not just talking about reason for the sake of reason. We're talking about reason with intent and purpose. I want to do God's will. I must reason why this isn't. And people that do not have that heart will never come to that question even. It's really sad. It's horrible. It's scary. It's sad. It's discouraging. But it is the truth. And so, since he is wisdom, he makes the foolish person wise. She is a holy kingdom in a shining robe, having much gold, and she gives you great honor. The wisdom of God became for your sake a foolish form, that she might pick you up, O foolish one, and make you wise. And the life died for you when he was powerless, so that through his death he might give life to one who once were dead. Entrust yourself to the word, and remove yourself from animality. A lot of the traits, whether you know it or not, that we see going on, and I'm sorrowful, I disagree that children are being born of a higher frequency. You can play that mind mush on stupid people, but friends, higher consciousness has never meant uncontrollable. In fact, the sheer fact of higher consciousness means you possess more consciousness than the others around you do. The children of our society of this day, of the last 3 generations, are anything but high frequency. I'm sorrowful. You can believe that and let them tell you that they're all going to be the ones that lead the way. You got another archonic lie that's being pushed into the world. It's not true. Believe that or don't, that's your business. It is clear what an animal is. I thought this was strange because it's the first really line I've seen between what makes us different from animals. We have the ability to reason and they don't. So a human that can't reason is actually functioning in animality. They're functioning in an animal form. For many think they have reason, but if you take a good look at them, their speech is animality. And we've been so programmed in our society that we're not to judge, when to the largest extent we are supposed to judge behaviors and actions, not judge the person. If you have no judgment, you don't know what right and wrong is. Right and wrong is the defining line of judgment. So when you look at it and you go, well, I don't care what that person thinks they know, what they're doing or how they're acting or their behavior is not what it should be. That's not sending them to hell. That's not passing judgment. It is becoming conscious. It is being aware of this person's behavior. And if you know what the define is, then it's really difficult not to look at that and go, well, of course, they're unreasonable. For many think they have reason. But if you take a good look at them, their speech is animality. Just listen to what comes out of them. Listen to what comes out of them. They'll say whatever somebody said that stuck in their mind. There is not an original thought in it anywhere. Give yourself gladness from the true vine of Christ. Satisfy yourself with true wine in which there is neither drunkenness nor dregs. The true wine entails the end of drinking, since it can give joy to the soul and mind through the Spirit of God. But first, before you drink of it, nurture your reasoning powers. So it's a learned thing. It is a journey in and of itself. Do not stab yourself with the sword of sin. Do not burn yourself, O wretched one, with the fire of pleasure. Do not surrender yourself to barbarians like a prisoner, or to savage beasts that want to trample you. For they are like lions roaring very loudly. Don't be a corpse, or they will trample you. Since you are human, it is possible for you through reasoning to conquer them. When the teachings that exist out there about us overcoming the Anunnakis and us learning how to be able to, overcoming the Archons, that there's not a thing about that doesn't line up with everything that's been said. We are supposed to be exceptional. The problem is, although it is changing and it will change, with the change that's coming positive, we are also living in a time which hasn't been like 600 years ago. We are in a time when the earth is going through something, if you will, I think you could safely say it, as the record has shown, that we're at the time, if you would, of the flood. This time, it's not going to be a flood. And I'm sure there will be some fire. This time, we're talking about an earth event called the tipping of the poles. It's not never happened. In fact, it has happened in this world. And the equatorial line has been changed. If it plans out like they expect it will, when the earth rolls over, where we are right now in Missouri will be the same place on the planet that Canada is. That's how much of a shift. In a blink of an eye, we will go from here to there. It is, and it is going to happen. It's already started. The Inuits know it and have known it for 50 years. They've been watching the sun shift where it comes up on the horizon. It's old news, actually, quite old news. But there's many other pieces that are manifesting with it as well. And I would think there would be even more. So, don't be a corpse, or they will trample you. Since you are a human, it is possible for you through reasoning to conquer them. So it's a message of hope for those who will. It's hopelessness for everyone else, but for those who will. It's not about talking. It's not about you convincing yourself of what you are. It's about doing the deal. It's about living the thing. It's about learning and growing and being what rightness is. That's what it's all about. And so the rational person fears God. The person who does nothing worthy of God is not the rational person. So you can take that, and that's another one of those questions that you wouldn't hurt yourself if you ask yourself. Is the behavior, is the thoughts that I'm dwelling on, I'm looping on, I'm pondering on, are these thoughts the thoughts that God would have? And how you value that determines a lot. So, the person who does nothing worthy of God is not a rational person. The rational person is the one who fears God. The one who fears God does nothing insolent. Once again, I'd like for you to see, no one made you do this, no one made you not do it. It is your decision on your own. And we like to blame people when we make the wrong decision, but it's not anybody else's fault. You made the wrong decision. So the one who fears God does nothing insolent. And I think if you would look that word up, you would see a little bigger understanding. The one who keeps himself from doing anything insolent is someone who keeps his guiding principle. So there are those who do, and there are those who don't. There are those who will, and there are those who won't. Nobody made it happen. That is individual choices and decisions that an individual person has to make. How you make them, how you judge them, how you bear them out, the value you give them determines everything. And he tells us even the value that we should tie with that. The one who keeps himself from doing anything insolent is someone who keeps his guiding principle. What is the guiding principle? As Yeshua is on this earth, so am I, and because of that, I must walk after that pattern. It's that simple. It's really that simple. This person, though existing on earth as a human being, makes himself like God. That's why it wasn't sacrilege that Yeshua said, do you not know that you are little mighty ones, that you are little Elohim? Do you not know that? And of course the answer was from the greatest scholars of Israel was no, we don't know that. The one who makes himself like God. Now I'd like to see, no one can make you do anything. This is a full-blown conscious decision. Where your consciousness is will determine which one of the two decisions that you make. And if that makes you sad because you know where your consciousness is, then be sad if that's what it takes for you to find your way to the path to where you do what's right because you want to do what's right. Anything outside of that is fake anyways. The one who makes himself like God. It's not accidental. It's not just going to happen. The space gods and the Galactic Federation and all the archangels of hell ain't going to make you make that decision. It'll be a decision that you and you alone make. And if you don't blame somebody else because they see it. The one who makes himself like God is someone who does nothing unworthy of God. Now, if you go back into Christianity, then being unworthy of God would be breaking some of their religious Christian rules. That's not the concept here. The concept is what's right. Not just right religiously. What's right? Outside of that paradigm. That's the problem. I told you it's going to get bigger, not smaller. For the mindless and those that have no ability to reason, they will buy that crap hook, line, and sinker. But for other people who have a mind and think, they're not going to buy that. It's not okay. I'm sorrowful. Children that are being raised that are insolent and belligerent and cuss at adults and all of the stuff that used to be norm are not higher frequency people. I don't care who you are. There's a real split, a chasm, if you would, a great divide like the Grand Canyon. The one who makes himself like God is someone who does nothing unworthy of God. According to the statement of Paul, this person is one who has become like Christ. Who can worship God without wanting to do things that are pleasing to him? That's why they say that the true ancient worship has nothing to do with any external expression whatsoever. I worship God inside of me. It doesn't take words. And it doesn't diminish from words, and it doesn't diminish from many other things. But the only place that happens is in you. You can sing a song and make yourself feel happy, but you can do that with a song about doing some evil stuff. Our society's full of it. Not the deal. And since we were taught to worship by the Anunnaki, so for worship as God is something that comes from the heart, and worship of God from the heart characterizes every soul that is near to God. Folks, if you can't find happiness and peace and beauty in all that is, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, I know that I haven't arrived, but I have to tell you, I have gone a few miles, and I am loving the results of this. I'm loving the results of this. It doesn't make anything necessarily better. Sometimes it makes you have to suffer through more worse. But the truth of the matter is at the end of the day, when you know you're okay with him and he's speaking to you, telling you that you have a purpose, then you really don't care about the rest. And so there is a great thing going on. There's as I said, we start today, and for about the next 3 days are going to be really intense. There's going to be nervous system changes that go on. One version is you prepare yourself and you go that way, not in laziness, not in slothfulness and mindlessness, but in inner contemplation. And then there will be those who the universe is going to drag by the back of their neck because they refuse to do it themselves. And so for some, the next 3 days is going to be pretty brutal, and for others, it's going to be an absolute amazement. It's going to be, there's going to be a piece of bliss, and then we start the new cycle. And how you go into that cycle sets the stage for what the next 12 years of your life are going to be. And since what's coming in 2027, which isn't, folks, not even a year away, in fact, quite a bit less than a year away, and then quite a few things all the way to 3031 that are all part of what's going on. It's not happening accidentally, folks. The universe is trying to warn those who will listen, okay? I promise you, Zuda, when he was warned by Anki through the wall, you may not know the story, Anki didn't want to totally defy the council, so he spoke to the wall, and the wall, part of that principle is that things of this earth absorb energy and words. And he was capable of hearing and then saving humanity for all practical purposes. It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing that it's been taken and rewritten so many different times, and yet all of a sudden within the last 10 years we've begun to see where all of those stories were actually crafted out of. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Anybody that has a thinking mind, if you read a story and that story is a rewriting of an earlier story, it's a good probability that you didn't get the true essence of the original. And that's why this is so powerful, because many pieces have been written and they appear to be real, they appear to be right, and yet what is going to be found out is that they are concoctions of men over the course of thousands of years. And so when you can find from, if you would in this case, from reed to ear, there's no room for 7,000 years of corruption in there. From reed to ear. Another piece, two things that really amazed me. It's starting to, part of one of the cycles that's fixing to come around is the thinning of the veil again. So spirituality has actually grabbed a small piece of what the Sumerians taught 5,000 years ago. I actually hear a lot of the things, and that's why I said spirituality in and of itself is not the wrong thing, but it has to be the right things, and there's lots of it that's not. There's lots of it that is human mind telling people how to be spiritual. And I had that in Christianity. I find that Source doesn't have any problem speaking to me and telling me the directions I need, giving me clarity about what I am and what my purpose here is. And if I have that, then there's nothing at that point humans can say that really matters. So, but there's lots of humans talking, and lots of humans talking as authorities. And yet everything that they've been teaching as authority is starting to be destroyed. Science is being destroyed. Christianity is being destroyed. We are moving into an age where humanity will once again be destroyed by what artificial intelligence is doing. And just so you know, 5,000 years ago, the Sumerians wrote about the mind that has no body. I don't think it's very difficult to figure out who that is. And so we are in an amazing time, for sure. How we handle this, we have come to fate, and fate says you will be here. The next piece for each individual one of us is to determine what that fate then means. Does it mean blessing? Does it mean pain and punishment? Does it mean, it can go lots of different ways. So it's highly important that you consider that now. But if you sense the difference over the next few days, because this is the sun's time, even if you can't go very far, stand outside or sit outside in the garden and let the sun be on you for a few minutes, and then when you have to, go inside, because sunstroke ain't cool either. But the energy of the sun right now where we're at is really powerful. This is a very powerful place in time that has been known for as long as there's been existence. And so, peace to each and every one of you. I hope you guys will grab something good from all of this. It's profound, and it's such a whirlwind. And so I hope that you get it. Those that don't, it's okay. It won't matter. But those that do, what a blessing it is. So peace and shalom to each and every one of you. Namaste.